God, I don't think you want me to hate myself because I don't think you hate me.
We're rolling.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Backsliders, the podcast. We're here today with our new internet friend. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, currently in Kansas City, and his name's Calvin Arsenia. He's also one of the hosts of a great podcast that we just started listening to, We Were Christian Kids. Welcome, Calvin.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us. We were also Christian kids.
Well, then we should talk.
Yeah. Oh, we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We were just.
How's it going?
It's good. It's good. I just saw on your Instagram the harp playing, and I was enamored. I'd never seen somebody be like a singer-songwriter on a harp. I would love at some point in this conversation to break out in song.
Okay.
And by me break out in song, I mean you.
You probably are familiar with a reference about singing to the veggies in the produce aisle.
Yes.
And that's something that I've definitely done a lot in my day.
We're excited. We're very excited. So, tell us about you.
I guess you're in Kansas City now. So where did you grow up? Where were you a church kid?
Yeah, that happened about 20 miles south of where I am right now. And I'm in a town called Olathe, Kansas. And Kansas City is divided by, is in both Kansas and Missouri. And it's divided by a river and a road called State Line. But the metro kind of traverses both states. And now, and for the last several years, I've lived on the Missouri side, but I grew up in a very quintessential suburb called Olathe. And that's where most of my Christianing happened.
Yeah.
Do you feel, is there a specific divide that feels different?
Oh, absolutely. There's totally different cultures on both sides and cultural differences. And yeah, definitely a very distinct divide. I mean, you kind of look, and Kansas City is kind of famous for that. Like you drive about 2 blocks and the whole thing changes. And so, yeah, definitely a big difference energetically between Kansas and Missouri.
Wow, that's fascinating. What was the type of church or religion that kind of shaped you?
I was somebody who definitely enjoyed having a buffet of it all. But mostly the things that are under the umbrella of Protestant. I did spend some time studying with kind of adjacently Seventh-day Adventists as well as Messianic Jews, but that wasn't my primary worship. I did a lot of non-denominational churches that I was involved with, as well as more charismatic things like the International House of Prayer, and then more conservative Southern Baptist and very driven by apologetics and logic-based Christianity. And so I would say that it was definitely a mix of many different things, and I was trying to take in as much as I could.
Yeah, you were very engaged and seeking truth and magic.
Spirituality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a space that you felt the most comfortable in or safe in?
Definitely on stage. I felt very much, and it's kind of ironic, but the feeling of being vulnerable on stage was much less terrifying than being vulnerable on, in the seats. And I'm a very tall person. And so also being anywhere besides the back of the room, I always felt like I was in everyone's way. And so either I was in the very, very back with my back against the wall, or I was on stage and singing or playing piano behind somebody else who was singing, or, doing a lot of worship nights and stuff like that. And so the posture of vulnerability in worship and in music was very comfortable, as well as being way in the back.
Wow. I relate a lot to the feeling safer on stage than necessarily like just in conversation being myself with people. It's almost like, well, there are boundaries, right? Like when I step into this space, this is what I'm doing. There's kind of like a sense of safety and control. And then when you step out of it, like you're no longer there, or, what I mean? I was also on the worship team when I was involved in youth group in high school. Which looking back on,
what do you sing and what do you play something as well?
I don't, actually I haven't sang publicly since college. I auditioned for musical theater. I never had like a big belty voice. And then I got rejected from the musical theater program, and then just kind of like doubled down on acting. And now we write and direct together. But I have been thinking about that now that I'm like 31. I'm like, I really did enjoy singing.
Yeah.
And I think I stopped because it's not something I'm pursuing as a career or trying to make money from. And how sad is that we might have tendencies to shut off things that we're not pursuing professionally.
Well, I'll never make $1 from it, so I'll never sing again.
Well, that's living in a capitalist society, so.
Yeah, isn't it? But I'm so glad that it seems like in your church or religious environments, you were able to really grow your musical gifts and passions as well, which have stayed with you even though you may have stepped away from religion. I don't want to speak for you. We can get
there. Yeah. Let's talk about all of it.
Yeah.
But I think, I grew up in the Midwest, and it's like boys were good at sports or sciences or math, and like I was always a very creative person. But like being asked, and especially being tall, always being asked to play basketball, or like, can you come do this or come do that, and like being voluntold to do things, and so as a creative in the church and somebody who, and I have always I was never the most masculine person in the lineup, and so I think worship was a safe environment for me to be able to be the emotive, creative, to be the sensing person, and it wasn't seen as effeminate in that space.
It was rewarded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you were an usher.
Yeah, and there weren't other contexts that I had in that environment to feel like I was right for the part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, because we're all in this whole deconstruction space, or we're hearing a lot of our peers speak about like how they felt in youth group, and a lot of the people who are now comfortable with things that are non-binary. Also, I found were creative in youth group, and like that's where they found their safety as well. So it's nice that you found a space to survive even when you couldn't fully be expressive, even when you didn't feel that in your real life.
Yeah, and if you're on stage, like you're the one who's playing the music for the altar call, so you never have to like feel guilted that you didn't respond to it,
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Or like, like it kind of felt like you were the choir when they use the expression "preaching to the choir." You're literally who that is, and there's not so much. People just assumed that he's on the worship team, he's fine, and he leads us into these moments of where we have experienced great healing, and therefore he must have been healed already, and so there wasn't a lot of accountability or questions. And even when I was more open, using language like I'm struggling with homosexuality, I think every one of my male mentors who I was able to be open with that about. Or at least, to the degree that I was open with it to myself, they were intimidated by the issue, and also probably intimidated by my forthrightness, and didn't really know what to do with that. But I was kind of contained by being kind of shy, and also I was very devoted to Jesus and to God, and I think that was sincere then, so I don't think I was trying to be malicious or that I was trying to like be mischievous on purpose. I really did want to give myself over to the cause, and so I don't know. It just felt also that I was a little bit neglected. Like nobody ever suggested to for any kind of conversion therapies or that kind of things. Even though I kind of wish that somebody would have cared enough to be like, hey, how about this? But yeah, the it's this catch-22 about I feel I have also remained unscathed from some of those more intense practices because I was on stage and I had this role to be in that people were comfortable with me being in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm so grateful you didn't go to conversion therapy, but I understand that question. Because I've questioned that as well. I'm like, I don't really remember people trying to get me back to church when I was stepping away. Like,
oh no,
yeah.
At that point, sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, they're gone. Yeah, we were losing them. I knew they really weren't committed. They were never really saved to begin with. I could tell they were always asking questions.
Or if
telling me they were struggling with things. Christians don't struggle, don't you know?
Or is that contagious? Like you're backsliding or struggle.
Oh, contagious. Yeah. No, that's true too.
Well, because it's like, you're supposed to surround yourself with people you want to be like. And
like-minded.
I mean, sinners, do you want to be like sinners? I mean, I do.
Right.
But,
and apparently Jesus did too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So the churches that you were in, I mean, clearly you learned the vocabulary, like to struggle with.
I wrote the glossary.
Of Christianese. So were there like sermons against homosexuality or like lessons where you picked up on this verbiage? That was something to struggle with?
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely. I mean, I went to a church that was from I'd say 12 to about 16. That was based in like topical series, and one of them was about homosexuality that the whole church was taught. I mean, it was, and I also had a knack for being in mega churches. So this was like televised and all the lights and hair and makeup and the huge band and the wind section and the huge choir, Christmas and Easter and then I was also the kid the after Wednesday night services and for the first sermons on Sunday, they would take the master recording and then immediately duplicate CDs to sell to people so that they could hand this message to other people. So they were selling merch, and I was the guy who duplicated. And at 12 and 13 years old, I was doing that.
Wow.
And so these messages were very impactful, and my mother brought me to that church and to all of my family to that church for the pastor who was teaching this way. And I remember very very distinctly they brought in a man who I think was a male prostitute who had been saved, and talking about the Castro district in San Francisco as gay Mecca, and how he had been with this many men in his lifetime, and then he got rescued by Jesus, and probably in a vision or a dream, and accepted the Lord and repented from his ways, and then he was married with a wife, and she had this like metaphor of about every time she got pregnant, she would give him an arrow in his quiver, some Bible reference.
Oh, quiverful.
And this is very traumatizing to feel as though to see gay men that I would maybe interact with, like maybe somebody working at a store or a waiter or something like that, and be like, wow, I feel like I understand that person. Like I feel like that sometimes. Like, and me being very closeted and wearing blank Gildan t-shirts and khakis and K-Swiss and seeing these people who are expressing themselves in different ways and being like, I like how they look, and they're so confident even though they're not like wearing jerseys and stuff. And so to be told that like these people who don't follow this code or this like code of conduct are less than and going to hell and rejecting God's grace and and like they are the reason for the calamities, and they are the reason for God's judgment, and they are the reason. And so like, yeah, definitely discouraged, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it is psychological trauma and violence and abuse that you're selling to children, you know, like who are, you're so young, you're still trying to form your sense of self and identity and figure out who you are
In the world.
Yeah.
Like who other, you know, like why would, I mean, to tell me in the context of the pastor's peers too. It's like he wasn't really talking to us. We were just there, you know, like the children in the room, and this was grown up discussion, but we were there to see it as if it was normal, right? And because maybe there were people that were there that didn't necessarily wholeheartedly agree or fasten themselves to those beliefs, but by their participation and their ongoing participation, I would have just picked up that this is what we all believe. And the funny thing is that there are people who are in my life still to this day from those times that I assumed would, if I ever came out, completely write me off and never speak to me again, and they didn't. They still talk to me. And so it's like this kind of feeling of forced group mentality that maybe wasn't, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That group think, or at least
the assumption.
Yeah. You know, because I mean, I feel like we notice that so much, especially nowadays, like these arenas where people are speaking absolute insanity or just hate. And it's like, who in that room is standing up? Or is there too much to lose? Or is it just so hard to be uncomfortable for people that they'll stay silent even when, you know, they do not agree with what's being said? I'm glad that we all are at least comfortable now talking about it on, you know, in these public spheres. I have a question about so you're a child processing these sermons and knowing, I guess my first question is, when did you realize that you were different from the communities that you were in?
I mean, I think, and I I remember hearing people say this, and understanding it and hating that I understood it, but they, you know, I always knew I was different. And I think I still have a little bit of a turmoil about, and I don't know if there is a perfect resolution, but nature versus nurture, and that maybe it's bad to pit them against each other. I think it's just a mixture of both. But yeah, I was always a bit more soft and focused on that, but then I also think there's a conflict between gender norms and expression and sexuality. I don't think that those two things are attached to each other necessarily. So, but I do remember always feeling a bit different, regardless of if that had to do with my sexuality and sexual preferences. I was always I wanted to be a famous painter when I was 8, you know, and really obsessed with impressionism and loved to do science and learning about animals and genus and species and you know, I was digging worms and picking flowers and not really interested in playing sports and those kinds of things, and kind of, you know, always walking to my own beat. And I remember I met a kid who was openly gay and also, you know, falling in love with my friends, you know, as a young person, you know, just you know, wow, they're so beautiful, and wow, they're so great at the things that they do, and they're fun, and right, and not having gender be obviously I wasn't able to talk about it in so many words, but I felt it, you know, both male and female. And then meeting a classmate who was openly gay and feeling so intimidated and jealous that he could be so brave and bold, and in middle school, and thinking, oh, I could never do that. I could never be that, because this other image of what it means to be successful, being a worship pastor at a church with a wife and kids in the suburb in America was what I thought was the only way to honor God, or the only way to live a successful life, or the only way to make my parents proud and to keep them in my life. The only way to honor the investment of my peers and their parents and my teachers and all of these people. And I was thinking about these things as a young person. I don't want to disappoint them. And so I had to, I guess, I had a big revelation later in life that me diminishing who I am, or at least just being honest with my experience, is the most awful thing I could do to their investment in me. Because even if I'm not living in what you think God had meant for me, because I know that I'm a good person, and I have experienced these things that you talk about and give a sign to God and attribute to God, I have experienced them beside you. And if you can't accept that I can exist as I am, and living with and in and accepting this thing that you hate, and have experienced the same God that you speak of, then that's your problem, not mine.
Absolutely.
Like I've experienced both of those things, and we have the chance to dialogue and see two different perspectives and gain something from one another. But I was no longer willing to make that my problem.
So was there I hate that question, because I'm sure it's not one moment. There's many things that lead up to, but when did this kind of, when did you become comfortable stepping away from identifying as a Christian? Because clearly you had a comfortability with knowing that your relationship with God or your view of God was different than those around you. Was there a time where you became more vocal about that?
Well, there was definitely a moment where I felt this great shift in my heart, in my mind. I was walking and praying, and that prayer walking was a big, local pastime. I don't know. I did a lot of that in high school, and afterwards, we used to pray around the high schools once a week, praying for revival in the schools, and then as a part of the International House of Prayer, we would walk the aisles and pray for hours. And so I was walking home one night and just feeling really depressed. Oh, side note, I was a missionary in Scotland while this was happening. So I was walking around.
Probably. How old were you?
I was 23.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have some questions about that, but continue.
Yeah. So I was living in Edinburgh, and I was working as a missionary, and I was receiving funds from my church home in Kansas, and I remember distinctly the moment, because I was walking home and I was very sad, and I think it might have been the middle of winter, and there's not much sun in wintertime, so depression happens a lot over there. But I remember being very sad and being very torn apart internally about this thing, because I was meeting people who were not in the church, and I was befriending them in very significant ways, and being open with them in ways that I wasn't able to be open with people who were in the church, and feeling them love me, and I was shocked and thrilled and amazed and touched, and so I was walking home one night and down the hill, down from the castle, and was I can't keep living like this. I don't think, and praying, I said, God, I don't think you want me to hate myself, because I don't think you hate me. So we're going to cut this shit out. You also said that the truth will set me free, and the truth is I like dick. So, so if you have a problem with that, by all means, do what you do. And because you can, if you've created all these things with just words, and if you can save the sinner like me, et cetera, then you're more than capable. And I have been willing, and I still am willing. If you want to do it, go for it. You're God. Who am I? But I'm not going to hate myself anymore, because this isn't working. And and you said the truth will set me free, and this is the truth, and I did feel free, you know.
Wow.
And so it was just, I feel like, you know, I'm not in any kind of church right now, and I don't study the scriptures, but I do feel like there is this metaphysical plane and this like spirituality that exists as like a facet of the human experience that we don't have language for yet, or that we have too much language for, and that is not supernatural, but it's just very natural. And so there was that moment, and so that was when I just decided that I was done. I was done with the self-hatred thing, and I wasn't going to accept it as a personal policy. And then I moved back to Kansas City, to my old church in Olathe, and felt this like very, you know, immediate and obvious imposter syndrome. And you know, I had come back and I was like the hometown hero because they used to pray for me on the big screen in this mega church, and
Wow.
like, you know, look at our, you know, young people and how cool and amazing they are. They're changing the world and we're so proud and all these things. And I came back and everyone was like, wow, you're so cool. You're amazing. How was it? And I just wanted to be like, well, you know, like I'm not doing this anymore. And I drank a lot of whiskey and lost my virginity. How does that sound? You know? And, you know, and I obviously didn't say those things.
Not to me.
And although I wish that I could have and would have, but I didn't. And so I slowly but surely I moved downtown, and I quit my job. That was kind of a restart of the job I had before that. So I was wearing a lot of the old clothes, you know, and they didn't fit anymore. And I moved downtown with a person who wasn't associated with any church, and started to be involved in the music scene in Kansas City. And I had to get new friends. I had to get a new framework. I had to build a new support system before I could completely cut off ties with the last one, or at least have the opportunity for those ties to be cut, because I was so involved in the church that all of my livelihood, all of my resources were bound in those relationships, and bound in the notion of me holding, you know, keeping face and staying involved in this. And I hated that kind of hypocrisy. I hated that cognitive dissonance, and I just wanted to live free of that. And so yeah, it was a slow process. After I quit that previous job, I was hired at a Christian school, as in, you know, 2 days a week music and French teacher, and did that for 2 years, and then in the middle of that got to tour a bit, and it wasn't until I left that job and have been now a full-time musician for the last I came out to my parents in December of 2017. So there was like 5 years of like kind of this gray area where, like, past this certain street in town, you know, the difference between the suburbs and the city, I was out with my friends in the city, but not to my parents or online anywhere. And I came out to my parents during essentially around a performance, and that was displaying this, this idea of internal conflict, and then deciding to just love myself, and that, and my parents were there and they witnessed it, and I really wanted them to see me express myself and my, sexuality, and talk about my sexuality in a way that was public, and to see my my audience and my friends and my community support me in that. And so when I wanted my parents to see the standing ovation after that, and to know that I would be okay.
Right.
And so that happened. Yeah, that happened in December of 2017. And yeah, that was a lot of information.
Wow. Oh, but I mean, you tell your story so beautifully.
Yeah, you do.
And I mean, I just got chills when you just talked about the standing ovation, because what stuck out to me earlier from when you were talking about this prayer walk that you had in Ireland, where you kind of like, were hashing it out with God, and you were like, you know, I don't hate me. I don't think you hate me. And you said you had that experience where with these new friends over there, you were able to be yourself and be more honest, and you saw them love you.
Yeah.
I could just see it, because I think that if we've stepped away from a church community, we all know that feeling where you are meeting people who don't have this framework with kind of a built-in set of rules to judge and evaluate you by.
And stay separate. Yeah.
Yes. There's no separatism without, you know, a religion that teaches you to separate. And so there's something so beautiful. I saw that scene and that powerful moment for you. But then as you went on, you were like, so many more years of living in this environment where you didn't fully feel like you could be yourself with these people, even though you felt like you had that with God. And that's just so much to carry. And I know, I know I just met you, but I love your work, and I'm just so proud of the resilience that you have to live through something like that. And then to come out publicly in a show to your parents, like, that's
that
so
could have
brave.
been that could have been a
Well,
lot of different ways.
What I did was I had my best friend come. He's New York based, but he came back to visit, and we shot a short film that depicted me and him, like, you know, beginning, middle, and end of a fling, a relationship. And there was a kiss in the film, and so I showed my mom that film the morning of the show. I like sent it to her. I sent her a link, and I was like, just so you know, this is going to be played tonight. Like, because I didn't want to humiliate them. It's like, if you don't want to come, I understand, but this is a part of the show. And you know, fortunately she did watch it, because that could have been also, you know, another disaster had she not. But she did watch it. She said, she texted me back and she said, is this your coming out to me? And then I was so like riddled with anxiety. This was early in the morning that I you know, had fallen asleep with so much anxiety, and, you know, weeks of anxiety around this. And so I was like, okay, what do I do? How do I do this? What do I do? How do I do this? And so, you know, the film was done and it was beautiful, and my friends did a great job producing it with me. And I sent it to her, and she said, is this your coming out to me? And I said, well, I guess so. And then she texted back and she said, almost immediately, she said, well, how does this affect your relationship with God? And how will this affect your job? And then I just like turned my phone off and fell asleep, like went back to sleep. And I didn't answer. And, you know, later in the day, as I was getting ready, I think I checked in and I was like, are you guys still coming? And she said, yes. And thank you for sending, you know, thank you for telling me, because you know, we don't want to embarrass your dad in public. He rarely comes out anyway. So, but yeah, like I have this song called Poseidon. That's about, it says, oh, Poseidon, you and your trident have been awful nice to me lately. You have your kingdom, a wife and a baby, but you make time every night. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't know what it is. You're just an ordinary man. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't know what it is, but I don't miss dry land. And then so then I don't know what it is, and it says, I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on it. And at the end of the song, it says, so I put my mouth on it. And to see mother, like, you know, grab her chest and guffaw at the end of that song was like, it, like that was life. Like my life was completed, you know.
That's incredible.
Yeah, like grateful. And like, you know, I think, yeah, she clutched her pearls and she hit my dad on the chest as well. And she just loved it. So
she loved it.
Wow.
How did your dad respond before the show or after the show?
No,
or did he need
and
some
still
more time?
never.
Still never.
Yeah.
I mean, we have never talked that much. He's kind of a, you know, shy guy in general. And so, yeah, just never have we had that conversation. And in fact, you know, I like my parents, my mom and I haven't really spoken about it at length either. there were a couple people that I introduced to her beforehand who I was dating, and like just was like, this is my friend. And so one of them, she ran into a couple of times at events around Kansas City, and she was like, hey, I saw so-and-so. And I'm like, great. Because by that time we had not, we weren't, yeah, it's an ex, exactly. So then eventually I had to tell my mom, like, Mom, actually, we're not, it's not, and don't
Don't talk to them.
like, just don't, like, I don't want to know that you saw them, because it's, that's over.
Yeah.
And so to have to tell her, like, I'm engaging in romantic and sexual relationships with people that are existing in the world, and they are men, and you run into them, like, that was a milestone, And recently I told my mom and showed a picture of my current partner, who I've been with now longer than anybody else, and it's not even been a year yet. But like, this pandemic has been very crazy to be and start a relationship in, and very like forging in fire kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you pick a couple people to be in your quarantine bubble, and I picked him and he picked me, and so we spend a lot of time together, and it's really, really nice. But like, my older brother also had recently started, it was recently in a new relationship, and so my mom was going on about them, and I was like, well, me too, like,
Yeah.
like, I want
love.
Right. I want to be validated in this relationship that's like rocking my world in the best way. And, or at least have given my mother the opportunity to validate it, and, I don't know, we're still kind of going through that, but she, I had offered for him to help us, my mom and my dad, they moved also recently, and like volunteering him to help move boxes and things. And so she's been like, hey, can he still help? And so that feels good,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because that is a big deal, just to, have your loved one be included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been really nice.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
And feel free to say no, because this is your partner, but is your partner religious, or do they have a religious preference?
No,
background?
there was like, he had a couple encounters with a youth group in his small town, but it was one of those youth groups that was more like fun based, and then they would like sometimes sneak in gospel stuff, like it wasn't like what I was doing, like it was just kind of, something that kids could do on a weeknight, and
more casual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Because it sounds
super great.
It's so nice when like Micah and I, like, we have different but similar histories, and sometimes it's nice just, it's nice to hang out with people that don't have all the heaviness that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's a lot to process. I want to ask, like, how are there tools that have helped you process this trauma that you endured?
I would definitely say that the stage has just let me do that over and over again. I mean, I started singing in church when I was about 13. I played acoustic guitar, and I still do, but that was my primary instrument, and I learned how to play so that I could lead worship, and that was like my identity. I was a worship leader. And then kind of transferring that to my time in Edinburgh, where I was playing probably 6 or 7 open mic nights a week, and really like building community around excellence in music and like divinity and performance, and in vulnerability, and like opening your heart, and like the same, quote unquote posture that we talk about in church, but using that in a way to just like have human to human experiences, was something that was, rocking me on the inside, and something that I wanted to share with my community there. And therefore I did, and it was awesome. So then I come back to Kansas City and trying to do that again, and have that same kind of like that healing and that same kind of like emotional intensity, that you get so often in the pews of churches, but have that a little bit tipsy in the bar,
Yeah.
And we've all had like live music experiences that are quote unquote secular, that shifted us, that changed us, that were a mark in the road. And so I began to see that this was not something that I could only attribute to having a dogma attached to it. Like, this is a process that the human body and mind do. And we can elicit the same response through honest storytelling, through good music, through theater, through lighting design, through fog machines, and through a really great kick drum, and we can bring these things together, and it's without the shame. And how much more beautiful, how much more fruitful are those experiences? And now that's a little bit as opposed to people who just kind of karaoke their way through covers, and, or, like, there's definitely a distinct difference. But I was thinking, what is the difference between somebody who, like, between an artist who really gets me in the heart and one that doesn't? And it's not technique, and it's not the songs they pick necessarily. It's what they sing them with, what devices that they are singing from, what is the posture of their heart. And I watched other people do that who had never touched the church before, and the church had never touched them. So I was like, wait. You mean to say? And so that's my, like, my obsession now. And since I moved back and started, and basically since 2017, and I was going on tour and traveling, and before the pandemic, I was playing in front of audiences multiple times a week again. And so, like, entering that space with the idea, or with the feeling of, like, if I can reach the edge of myself, if I can just reveal something in myself that I would normally be ashamed of in the context of the situation, because, like you said, there are, like, boundaries and there's rules when you're on stage, and you feel more safe there than you do in just casual conversation. So it's like if I can reveal parts of myself in a context where they're ultimately going to applaud at the end, then maybe I can face myself in the mirror a little bit easier as well. And so it's just like little by little by little by little by little, etching away at the walls, etching away at the shame, at the grand mountain of shame, and then finding myself become more and more comfortable wearing my own skin, and being less intimidated or afraid of my own thoughts, because in the church we're taught to like hate our thoughts, and to hate our inclinations, and to hate our desires, and all of that has taken, and is a continuing process of unwiring and rewiring, and knowing that that we are nuanced and tangled up, and that's not a bad thing. That's a part of the journey. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, the place where I feel safe is still the stage. It's just without the shame this time.
Yeah. And stepping into the vulnerability and sharing that with others. And I'm sure you're touching so many people's lives with, like, your, not only like your skill set as a musician and your songwriting, but just this presence that you have and your willingness to step in and be vulnerable and share that with people. There's a quote that we love that's, I think it's applicable. Stories are medicine. And I think it's by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, I think. I don't know exactly how to say her name, but I've read her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And that's, like, what we base our filmmaking on, and, like, why we do the podcast, because I do believe that stories, like our authentic stories, maybe the ones that we're afraid to tell, is truly where healing can happen on both sides. Because, we all feel so alone and trapped in our own minds with the thoughts that we were taught to guard and to, patrol, that there's no safety is what we're taught as children. But the more we step out and explore and share, we realize that actually I am safe enough to be myself. And maybe I can deeply connect with people and heal by just being brave with the truth of where I am and what I think.
Yeah, and I being somebody who maybe other people might look up to, especially in the context of, like, queer people in the Bible Belt, I always want to be sensitive, because there are places in America at this current moment where being any kind of alternative person means that your life is in jeopardy. And so, for the people who might be listening now, or the people I encounter from forever, it's like, find your safety first. Like, make sure that your physical body, that your well-being is like that you're safe, but do that as fast as possible. Find resources, find friends, build a community, and find your safety, but definitely, but then be yourself, and learn what is beautiful about you and what the world needs that you have, and focus on manifesting that.
And one of the great things about being alive in this day and age is that the internet exists. So, whereas maybe, I mean, we had MySpace and stuff, but I wasn't exploring like online communities. But now, like, kids who are different than their households or their towns or their states can venture online and find communities of people. And like, we see so many different stories than we did when we were younger. And that gives me hope that there are safe spaces, even when there might not be safe spaces physically yet.
Sure. Yeah.
Before you're an adult.
And those can connect you to further places in the future, because I think we can be kind of short-sighted sometimes, like, try to invest in the lifelong experience, rather than just like your immediate one too. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess you already said earlier, like, where you are now in this. Did you use the word metaphysical?
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah. I just feel I have seen miraculous things, like, in the church, and especially concerning like prophecy and the prophetic spirit, right? Or very similar to channeling or to mediums, or and what that tells, that with the tools that I have in my possession, logic and deduction, it seems to me that everybody is connected on this other plane, that we all have the ability to intuit and to discern, and that there are things at play that we don't have language for, or that we've attributed to something that is excess. And so we've attached this, dare I say, mythology onto these very natural things that humans have always been and will always be capable of doing. And we are way more connected than what I believe well, hold on. because I was going to say what the science community would say, but science itself is only a method of collecting information. Like, science is make a hypothesis, test it out.
Right.
Make a better hypothesis, test it out. So I'm not going to say that the science community doesn't believe, but I would say that like the society at large assumes that we are not connected psychically, that we are not able to intuit or to speak to or to connect with things that are not just another like face in front of ours, And so I would love to see a way to open those conversations and utilize. I mean, how many times have you called somebody, or been thinking about somebody for a while, and you call them and they tell you about the trauma that they just endured? Like, that happens all the time, and it shouldn't be like this like thing that we're like, oh my gosh, look, I'm psychic. It's like, no, you're a human just like everybody else. Get used to it, and next time, don't wait so long to call.
Right. Like
call when you feel the thing, because you felt the thing and you obviously knew that you needed to do that, and you waited. And so I don't like, there's this like a little bit of this, it's not hippy dippy, it's just being a human, and the more that we can lean into that, I think the closer we are to what may or may not be God's design for us. And it's not weird or bizarre or special. It's like bare minimum human experience.
Yeah.
Right. No, I got super excited when you brought up the scientific, like, limitations, we'll say, to explain the things that we don't know. Because I made a hot take on a previous podcast that, like, religion starting out was almost like the time's scientific explanation for what they didn't understand. It was almost like they weren't testing it, so it wasn't science, but they were trying to explain the beyond.
The unexplainable.
Yeah, the unexplainable. And I think that science now is further advanced, and we're like discovering things that we never thought we could, like what's the what's the thing that's like light can be in two places at the same time, or
quantum physics.
Quantum physics.
Quantum physics. I don't know too much about it, but we're learning things that we didn't know 50 years ago, and it's blowing our mind. So how much more is there?
Right.
Probably a lot. All that
Tons.
all that to the point that what you're saying is like, this isn't supernatural. This is just natural. This is just natural. We don't know how to put an explanation to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's not as separate from science as we think it is, or as we're told it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there can be a danger of being like, an extreme on both sides, whether you're like extreme science and facts or extreme religion. Like, I think the beauty of questioning is this like gray area. And isn't that life? Like, isn't that what we're all experiencing? And also like, because science disproves itself all the time. Like what we
That's
once
its job.
Yeah. And the point is to just like keep this curiosity and keep examining and keep this openness so that you are open to possibilities that maybe you wouldn't be if you just like if we decided the earth was flat forever. Because at one point
there are some
we're still there.
Still think that.
Some pretty convincing YouTube videos out there.
Oh gosh.
Don't fall off.
I have ventured and explored like a little bit to see what some of the comments are, and this is doozies.
It's doozies.
Yeah. But yeah, I like where you are.
Yeah, it feels good. I feel happy. I think to what you were saying just then, like it's important to remain teachable and to never get like calcified to the point where you're like, nope, I know it all. or I'm unwilling to learn more, because that's also like dangerous, because you could accept that you don't know everything, but like if you just close yourself off, like, I always want to be willing to be fascinated. And I always want to be willing to be educated and to be wrong. I want to be willing to be wrong, and because there's just so much that we as a collective, 7 million people experiencing life in this singular moment. Of course, there's things we're going to learn, and I want to know. I want to see it. I want to know that, and I want to contribute to it. And I would hate to learn new things or to have new ideas or to express things, which, how weird would that be if like out of the 7 billion that you're the first. But if that is happening and you're experiencing that and you share that, and then people don't believe you or don't listen to you or don't even entertain the idea, like I'm sure there are billions of things that happen every day that are laughed off and shoved into the closet and told that they are not worth the time of day, and how sad is that?
That's very sad.
Yeah, it's sad that things that are very rare are things that people are afraid of or reject. It's like, no, it's rare. Like let's uplift this and look at it and cherish this rare idea and see and let's test it and see what's up with it.
Well, I think it also just depends like what country, community, society you're raised in, because like something that's really inspired us as we've been diving into this work and the podcast is learning about Indigenous communities and how like they hold trans people to be sacred and divine and like closer to the divine, and just that knowledge of knowing, oh wow, like I could have been born in a community in an environment where this quote unquote different person was revered. And so like what beauty that, like, that's just such a beautiful lesson about everything. Like at one point I was closed off to the beauty of Christianity because of the harm that it did to me. But in reality, the story of Jesus is beautiful, just like the story of Buddha is beautiful. And there's things to learn from it. And like you said, what a gift it is to be open to that and to be curious so that we can learn so many different things and not just be stuck in one thing that we're told is the only thing that could possibly be true.
Yeah. Yeah, healthy water flows.
Ooh, that's true.
That's true.
And it doesn't freeze either.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, hard
winter.
to.
It's hard to. Yes, it takes a long time. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
And it unfreezes
Yeah, if the temperature changes.
if the temperature changes. You know what that means.
Speaking of freezing, how did you, I mean, you just endured something horrific, didn't you?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was, I mean, we're very grateful that really we only went 2 days without power and with days in between. So we lost power we're currently in Austin. We lost power in the place that we're staying at, which is close to downtown. We were here for like 18 hours while it was off.
And then we were like, I called my sister who lives across town and had power, and we were like, we're going to come over. And, you know, this was like with like 10 inches of snow on the roads and nobody here.
Yeah.
And there's no
Prep.
street sweep, you know,
cleaning,
cleaning or salt or whatever. So you're just like, I'm going to test it out. And luckily it was like, you know, powder. So it wasn't like ice.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like driving on dirt in a way. And then,
but it did take us. It normally takes us like 20 minutes to get there, and it took us an hour because we were driving super slow.
Yeah, 25 miles an hour. Yeah.
And we got there, and they were like close enough to a hospital that they kept their power and water on for a few more days, and then I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday they lost power and water, and we were there with like our niece and nephew, and they're pretty young, and I think that when we got back, we realized like how wiped we were because it's just like, you know, we're already living through a pandemic, and then all of a sudden, you know, how do we get water?
Yeah.
And how can we eat?
Yeah, we're like putting buckets of water in the toilets from the pool that my sister has, you know, like to flush and stuff. You know, it's just like you got real old school real quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got real pioneer real quick. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know,
but like we're just like one like tiny itty bitty thing away from pioneer life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And none of us know how to do it really. Like,
No.
Water and power is like, it'll change your life real quick.
Yeah.
like, yeah, really quick. Minutes. You got minutes to figure it out.
Yeah. So we're very grateful that all in all, like we were safe and were able to like stay warm enough when we needed to. And
Yeah, if we didn't have another place, it would have been because the power didn't come on here for 5 days, the place that we're staying in.
yeah.
And
it got
we
cold.
have no gas stove, so we wouldn't have been able to cook, and we wouldn't have had water. We would have had to like walk up the street and knock on a door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would have, like,
Yeah.
thank goodness we have family in town.
So apocalyptic or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Like,
just, it wasn't really that surprising. I mean, it was surprising, but it wasn't. I mean, we came here from LA, so like we've dealt with the air and the fires and like the huge pandemic, like the surge and the outbreak there. And then we came here for like a respite and to spend time with family. It snowed twice since we've been here in Austin, just like historic snowfall. And then this, you know, power outage, and then processing the trauma of like our fellow Texans who, you know, some of them lost their lives. And yeah, it's just like, you know, it's just what we're living through, which is a lot.
Yeah,
A lot.
conversations like these are very, very helpful. You know.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. I mean, to have endured like two like insanely strange. I mean, the snowpocalypse was not as long like winded maybe as like the initial hearing about the pandemic and everything shutting down, but like to have those compounded, I mean, it just sucks. It sucks.
Well,
I'm sorry that you guys had to go through that.
Oh, thank you. I think that it's all just like hitting this basic human fear of uncertainty. and our lack of control.
Yeah,
That's
zero control.
That's just like been something that I just feel like I can't step out of. And I don't know if I'm getting more comfortable with the feeling, but I cannot avoid it, and we keep facing these very real life situations where it's like, yeah, no, you do not have control over the weather or, these sicknesses or so. And it's making me be like, well, what do I have control over? Which I guess is just what I choose to do in this moment or focus on. But I will not say that it's like made me this happy, dappy, like super grateful person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Just surviving.
But you are learning a lot about yourself in the midst of it. And like you were saying about me earlier, like your own resilience and like the fact that you did figure it out and you know that even though none of us thought, I mean, even March 3rd, this time last year that we would be going through any of this bullshit. How would you survive? Or, thinking about who we were then, we're not the same people we were then. And could I I used to travel a lot. So like, if you told me like, oh, there will be a day when you're 29, you'll be celebrating your 29th birthday and you won't be able to have your friends over. Like, I wouldn't have bought it. I would be like, you're full of shit. Go away, And, sorry, not your 30th birthday. I turned 30 this year.
Welcome to the club.
So so it was like this, like, and I had planned like doing this whole big Vogue ball and like bringing like the different parts of the city together to like really celebrate voguing and things like that. And it was going to be awesome, but couldn't do it and was super bummed about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a loss. We're all living through so much loss and change. And, it's okay to grieve that. And then we're also trying to function and still do.
And like grieving is an ongoing process too. Like some days you do a little more, some days you do a little less. But I think I hadn't even thought about that party. And I know it just sounds like a party, but it was going to be awesome.
No, it sounds awesome. I want to go.
No, don't diminish it as a party because parties are like, I mean, they can be all of your friends, like you were saying, from different.
Yeah.
Even when we have.
And from all over the country. Like I was going to fly people in and like take lessons on and like get like different like stars in the trans community to like teach and like, build like houses across the city to come and present and like all these things. And it was going to be fucking epic, and hopefully a lot of new friends would be made out of the whole thing. And and it does feel a little like just shitty. Like, I mean, that's just one thing. I have lost friends to the virus, and I have but I would have had no idea who I was still, and I didn't know who I was a year ago now, and at least not as well as I do now. And I've seen myself go through things, and I've watched myself grieve. Even people who had passed away before this all happened, who I never slowed down enough to like really acknowledge that had happened, and grieving old friendships that have moved on, and there's just layers to it. There's just so many layers to it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a process. It's not like there's an end point to this process of going through change and grieving things that we desperately want to hold on to, or to whether it's people, that we want to keep in our lives, or parties that we want to experience, because that's community and connection. And that's what it means to be a human. Yeah. We're all still here.
Yes.
And surviving so much. And I'm so happy to have connected with you.
Yes, no.
Online.
Thank you
too.
for being a part of the process with us. It's been very uplifting.
It's a pleasure. An honor.
You have great words.
Yeah, great
thanks.
story. If you're open to it, would you like to play us some song that brings you joy?
Yeah, I'll share a song from. It's a little bit of a mantra. From the before times about specifically dealing with romance, and was kind of the impetus for writing it, but I think it kind of applies here too, just about resilience and about and about, a little bit about self-care and self-knowledge. And I don't know, I'll just sing it. The song is called Headlights. I used to think that love was a solution. Convinced there was ever a cure-all. I waited around in perpetual slow motion. Planned obsolescence, already back to patching the seams. It ain't what it seems to be. Over and over and over and over again, I fall apart. Over and over and over and over again, I fall too hard. But I'm gonna be okay, whether you're in or out. The headlights look the same, going in or out. I found my new vice, and it's filling me up like an ashtray. And I took every single mirror down, 'cause I don't want to see malnutrition seeping from beneath this paper towel. It's much too much to clean up. So I open the window and pretend I'm picking roses in Versailles. The headlights look the same, going in or out. And I'm gonna be okay, whether you're in or out. Out. In or out. In or out. In or out. Out, 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 ooh.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was awesome, man.
I'm crying. That deserves a standing ovation.
Yes.
That was so beautiful. Here we stand. There's our crotches. That was so beautiful.
That was very beautiful.
Such beautiful lyrics, and you have a beautiful voice. And I've never seen, like, I know this isn't in person, but that's what it feels like in this new world that we're in.
Right.
Like, I've never seen. Is it a harpist? Is that what we say?
It's a harpist. Mm-hmm.
A harpist. A harpist.
It's very rare,
perform.
and I want to celebrate it.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for your artistry. And will you please tell our lovely listeners how they can find you and support your work?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm at Calvin Arsenia, everywhere that you are. even a little ditty here and there on TikTok, but don't go there. Go to my Instagram. That's where I'm most engaged and keep up to date. And if you want to be present and among the first to see when I might be coming to a town near you, you can sign up to my email on my website, calvinarsenia.com. That's Calvin with a C and ARSENIA.com.
Beautiful. And we will share all of those links in this description. To everyone who's listening or watching, thank you guys so much for being a part of Backsliders. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We have an Instagram account, Backsliders Show, with 2 S's in the middle. And then wherever you are, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so that you're notified when we have new episodes. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, go to Apple Podcasts, hit a 5-star, and then leave a review, a sentence or 2. It really helps us show up in the algorithm. Thank you so much for being a part of this, Calvin, and thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, guys. We love you.
No, I'm not saying that it wasn't real. I'm just saying that you made me feel bad. Don't try making me a better deal. I'm done with you and I'm fine with that, and that's that.